Assalamu alaikum students. We started our chapter number 12, that is coordination and control. Students, in the previous lecture or in the start of this chapter, you have learned about the nervous system and the structure of the brain in detail. Now we will start our next topic, that is receptors in humans. Now what are the receptors in human? The organs or parts of the body which are specifically built to detect a particular type of stimuli are called sense organs or receptors. You have learned in the start of this chapter what are stimuli and in the nervous system. Stimuli mean any change in the environment. For example, when you touch a hot object or a cold object, then your nervous system will become active and the message will send to the brain, and all that process you have learned about this process in the start of this chapter. And the parts or organs of the body which detect a specific stimuli, that part or that organs are called sense organs or receptors. And main receptors or organs in human are eyes, ears, nose, taste buds that are present on our tongue for different tastes like sweet, sour, bitter, touch, heat and cold. Here we will discuss about the eyes, starting from the eyes in detail. First we will see the structure of eye, then we see the image formation, how the image form within the eye, then the disorders of the eye. We discuss about the eye in detail. First we see the location of the eye, where eyes are located on our face. Our eyes are located in small portions of skull known as orbits or eye socket. This is the eye socket, portion of the skull where the eyes are located, called socket of the eye or the orbit of the eye. Eyelids. You can see this portion is the eyelid that covers our eye. And what is the function of the eyelids? It wipe our eyes and prevent from dehydration, spread tears which contain substances for fighting bacteria. Okay. Eyelashes prevent fine particles from entering our eyes. Now the structure of the eye. Basically there are three main layers of the eye: outer layer, middle layer and inner layer. We will discuss about all these three layers one by one. First we will see the outer layer. Outer layer comprises sclera, cornea. Sclera, cornea. From the diagram you can see this is the sclera and this is the cornea. This is the outermost layer. Outer layer comprises sclera, cornea, and mostly the outer layer protect the inner components of the eye, and it maintains the shape of our eye. Sclera gives eyes most of its white color. The white portion of our eye that you can also see from the outside is the sclera. Consists of dense connective tissues, protect the inner components of eye and maintains the shape of our eye. Okay. Now the cornea. In the front, sclera forms transparent cornea. You can see from the diagram, here is the sclera and it goes in the front, it forms transparent. You can see from the diagram this transparent portion called cornea, and it will admit light to the anterior of the eye, bends light rays and brought to focus so that the image will form. Now coming towards the middle layer of the eye. Middle layer of the eye is also called choroid layer. You can see from the diagram, this one is the first layer, sclera and cornea, and this one is the second layer, choroid. You can see from the diagram, choroid is the middle layer. It contains blood vessels and give inner eye a dark color. Dark color prevent disruptive reflections within eye. The light ray that enters through the cornea, the middle layer prevent the disruptive reflections, means it will just focus it to form image. It will not allow the light ray to go this way or this way. It will just focus it onto the third layer, that is the retina, where the image will form. It will focus the light on its right place to form the image instead of disruption of the light. It prevent the darker color of the middle layer, prevent the disruption of the light. Iris, pupil. Iris, pupil. You can see choroid goes this way and it forms, this is the iris and this is the pupil. Iris, pupil. Behind cornea, choroid bends to form a muscular ring. Iris is a muscular ring behind cornea. Here is the cornea. Behind cornea, here is a muscular ring. Choroid. This is the choroid. Choroid will form a muscular ring called iris. Muscular ring called iris. Behind cornea, choroid form a muscular ring called iris. Now what is the pupil? A round hole called pupil in the center of iris. In the center of iris, a hole you can see. This is the pupil. This is the pupil. In the center of the iris, this is the pupil. Contraction and dilation of the pupil. Because of the iris muscle, iris consists of a muscular ring, and muscles can contract and dilate. Because of this muscular contraction and dilation, the size of the pupil is adjusted. Size of the pupil is adjusted by the muscles of iris. Light strike cornea, then pass through pupil. Light that enters through cornea, then it will pass through the pupil. Then it will pass through the pupil. Okay. First, students will see the muscles of the iris. There are two types of muscles in the iris. Outer radial muscle, this way you can see these fine lines. These are the radial muscles of the iris, and in these circular muscles, these are the circular muscles of the iris. Basically there are two types of muscles of the iris: outer radial muscles and inner circular muscles, and here is the pupil. Because of the contraction and dilation of these two sets of muscles, the size of this pupil is adjusted. Right? We will see how it is adjusted. In bright light, circular muscles of iris contract and pupil constricts. You can see from this diagram. Bright light, what is happening in the bright light? These circular muscles contracts and pupil is constrict. You can see from the size, this one and this one, this pupil is constricted. Okay, this will happen in the bright light. When bright light, then then immediately you blink your eyes to prevent your eyes from any damage. Then what is happening in the back? Then in the bright light, these muscles, circular muscles contract, pupil will constrict, and in the dim light, radial muscles of iris contract. You can see from this diagram, these radial muscles contract and pupil will dilate. You can see from the size of the pupil will dilate in the dim light. In the dim light, mostly you broaden your eyes to see the object. So what happened to your pupil? Pupil will dilate. Okay. Convex lens and ciliary muscles. Behind the iris, there is a convex lens which focus light in retina. You can see from this diagram, This is the third layer, retina. This is the third layer of our eye, retina. Lens is attached to ciliary muscles of eye via a ring of suspensory ligaments. Via a ring of suspensory ligaments. These are the suspensory ligaments and these are the ciliary muscles through which it will attach to this by the suspensory ligaments. Lens is attached to ciliary muscles of eye via a ring of suspensory ligaments. To clearly see an object far away, ciliary muscles are relaxed and lens becomes less convex. When you have to see an object that is far away from your eyes, then what will happen? Then ciliary muscles are relaxed and lens becomes less convex. And when ciliary muscles contract, then what will happen? Then lens becomes more convex and round. Okay, now coming towards the inner layer, it is a sensory layer and called as retina. This is the inner layer of the eye called as retina. It contains photosensitive cells called rods and cones and associated neurons. Okay, third layer or the inner layer of the eye is called as retina and it contains photosensitive cells called rods and cones. What are rods? Rods are sensitive to dim light, cones are sensitive to bright light. Okay, now we will see what is retina. It has 2 points: fovea, optic disc. Retina has 2 points: fovea, optic disc. Students, in this diagram it just show the retina. Here is the third layer, retina, and you can see from this diagram what is fovea. It is a dip in retina directly opposite to lens and is densely packed with cone cells. Here is a dip, you can see from this diagram. Here is a dip in the retina and it is directly opposite to the lens. This dip, that is called as fovea. This dip in the retina is called as fovea and it is directly opposite to the lens. And here are large number of cone cells are present. That is why it is responsible for color, vision and sharpness. You know, cone cells are sensitive to bright light and at this point they are densely packed with cone cells. That is why it is responsible for color, vision and sharpness. Now what is optic disc? It is a point on retina where the optic nerve enters retina. You can see from this is the optic nerve and the point where the optic nerve enters the retina, is called as optic disc. You can also see from this diagram, yes, this is the fovea, a dip in the retina, and this is point where the optic nerve enters the retina, and this point is called as optic disc. This point is called as optic disc and there are no rods, no cone cells are present. That is why this point is also called as blind spot. There are no rods, no cone cells are present at this point. That is why this point is also called as blind spot. Optic disc, it is a point on retina where the optic nerve enters retina. There are no rods and cones at this point, so it is called as blind spot. Okay students, this is about the main 3 layers of the eye. In the next lecture we will discuss about the chambers of the eyes, how the image form within the eye, and the disorders of the eye. And students, you have to practice this diagram to learn about all these layers. If you practice it by your own self, then it will become very easy for you to learn about all these names and all these terms. Thank you so much. Stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.